Mike.
That's Toya.
And this is Tech Beats and Bytes.
So we are so excited. We have a great guest coming on. This is the last show of the
Season.
spring. Well, it's a
Spring season.
It's a spring wrap up because it's not really the season. So it's a spring wrap up. Yeah,
well, no,
it
we
is the
talking
last
about for
day of
us.
school.
Yeah.
But it is the last day of school. Praise God. Less traffic.
Right, less traffic.
So
amen to that. Look.
We have brought on Simone from Natural Trendsetters. I know y'all think she is here to plug an event, but Simone is here to confess to you guys that I used to have dreads down to my, no, I'm just playing. But Simone used to actually do my hair before I cut my hair. So when I tell y'all I used to have dreads, this is the proof. You can ask Simone. Many years ago. Simone is here to talk about her upcoming event. Make sure you talk up Simone. Use the mid-drama debate while 6 women are getting their hair done voice.
Okay.
We need the...
Okay, I got that.
Y'all know exactly which voice that is.
Not to make your voice heard in the salon. Talk over
in the
crowd.
salon. You don't just prove a point. So they gotta hear you.
Right.
Girl, let me tell. No. Those used to be some of the best conversation. Yeah. To be the only dude in the salon.
That's how I felt today. I was the only chick in the barbershop.
Oh, that has to be kind of awkward on you. It's probably awkward on your end. It was enlightening on my end. I used to learn a lot at that chair.
We was watching First Take, and I was all chiming in. It was fine.
I always tried to pretend I was asleep, so they would talk about the stuff they really didn't want me to hear.
The conversations in barbershops and salons are the absolute best.
Absolute best.
It's one of the best shows. So,
the community.
Go ahead. This your thing. This your hair thing. Go ahead, Toya. I'm done.
So we have Simone Hilton with us to talk about Royal Coils, the Natural Hair and Beauty Expo happening this Sunday. So Simone, tell us, what can we expect?
It's going to be just a really great time. Black excellence, beautiful hair and fashion showcases, live demonstrations, products beyond the belief. Like, you're going to see amazing black businesses sharing not just hair products and beauty products, but also like clothing and accessories. It's like a real great shopping time as well as education and entertainment at the same time.
That's right, because we'll be there.
Yes.
Pre-ordering for these lovely beauties right here.
You guys, I'm so glad you guys support us in everything we do.
Yeah, it's mutual.
Yeah,
it's mutual.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly. So what time, place, and what will be there? So will it be a fashion show? I know you'll be doing some hair demonstrations.
Absolutely. It's going to be this Sunday at the Westin Hotel in Fort Lauderdale from 2 to 8 is the expo, but from 11 to 1. We have complimentary classes for anybody that wants to know about natural hair and health and beauty. We're going to have vendors there from 2 to 8. We will have a beauty and beard lounge. So we're inviting brothers, too.
All right.
Brothers think they can't go to a hair show. But
no, that's not true. We think we can go. That's where beautiful women at.
That's where all the sisters are at.
All them boys planning to go to Brooklyn right now for that other show. That's where it's at.
That's what's up.
Putting out alerts. If you want to see beautiful black women of all shades, go to a hair show.
Yeah. And
that's
we
real.
Have, Rochelle Graham from Alakay Natural. She's going to do a meet and greet.
Okay.
We got panel discussions with sisters in business.
Yes.
So cosmology is invited because they are sisters in business as well.
That's right. We'll be on the panel.
Yeah, and our theme this year is I'm my sister's keeper. But we're our brother's keeper, too. We're not.
No. We're feminists on this show, too. We support that. So what's led to this? I know in transition you went through a phase, and this is just for some knowledge for the crowd. I know there was a phase where you were doing like a lot of celebrities' hair.
Oh, definitely.
And I know you had a year of growth where it was almost like some neglect to the shop, but you were getting put on. So how's the growth been for you for the last 4 years? I mean, not that there's truly a natural hair care boom, but in essence for mainstream there is. So how's that growth been for you?
Well, it's insane because I'm a cosmetologist as well, so I like to do a lot of production, but I've been getting a lot of men with locks. I do Wale and Ace Hood, and sometimes I travel with them, so sometimes I'm not always behind the chair, but the passion is still there. I love what I do, and it's just business as usual.
So just a fast growth pace, just a more clientele, or I know I see like even with Toya Cosmology, there's a lot more product development, which is real dope.
Absolutely, because that's what it's about. We've been in business going on 21 years now.
Wow.
You made our first website.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So when was that?
That was
20 years ago.
It was a while ago.
Really?
But yeah,
well, he made our
we did the first upgrade.
Website.
Yeah,
nice. Okay.
Maybe about 15 years ago, but it's just growth, and we're tapping into our own product line as well. So we just look forward
You
to
know
many
that's
more
long
years.
overdue.
Yes.
A natural
definitely.
trendsetter's hair product, that's long overdue.
Well, it's here now. We
Yeah.
ready.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Toya, I just
No,
had to-
no, that was fine. That was
That's my
good. That was
hobby.
good. Absolutely. So, in addition to doing celebrities, and what's the future for natural trendsetters and for your product line?
Well, the product line is definitely a line that we've been using for 20 years in the salon.
Okay.
We believe in the formulations. We know that they work, and we really want the stylists, hair salons, to get back into really using products that work. So we are selling to the public, but we really targeting stylists so that they can have a system to use in their salon. It's a growth system and a style system. Yeah, it's called Royal Coils as well.
So, is it available to purchase already, or?
Absolutely, it's available online at myroyalcoils.com.
Fantastic. Any tips you want to leave for those who are aspiring to be in the beauty business before you wrap up?
Sandara.
Well, I would
Right.
love to let everyone know that the natural hair industry is here to stay. It is growing at an amazing pace, and cosmetologists really need to get involved because the professionalism is being lost in the salon. You know, we need our cosmetologists to embrace natural hair more because it's growing. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, really quick point on that, Susan. I'd love to hear what you think, because we had Sylvester Bailey on, and he was sort of talking about the whole YouTube trend and how that's cutting into the business. How has YouTube affected your business? Have you seen anything really, or are you able to
Definitely,
maintain?
Definitely. I'm old school, so I started out grassroots and just really going out and getting clients. And now so many people are discovering natural hair on YouTube. They're
Yeah.
literally bringing YouTube videos to show me how to do their hair.
Wow.
I'm like, little girl, I am an expert, and let me show you the right way to do it, you know?
Right.
But I can't knock YouTube because they're getting to the masses, you know, and they're skipping over the stuff.
But at least you're still sharing your knowledge. That's the big thing.
Absolutely.
Some people wouldn't be
Absolutely.
willing to share the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. I'm my sister's keeper, you know.
That's right. That's right. So where can everybody find you? Social media, all that
media,
good stuff.
Natural trendsetters all across all social medias, and I'm Simone Sets Trends.
That's
on
right.
Instagram.
Thank you so much, Simone, for joining us
Thank
today.
Give us that date
guys.
one more time for her before we go.
June 10th, Sunday, June 10th at the Westin Hotel in Fort Lauderdale from 2 to 8.
And that is 400 Corporate Drive for Lauderdale, Florida.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We're going to get ready
Thank
for
you
our
guys.
next guest. But Simone, thank you for coming out.
Thank you,
Thanks for
guys.
being
All right.
here.
All right. We're back. We have a special guest today for the end of the year wrap up. We thought we would bring the most controversial. No, I'm just playing.
Right. Spring season wrap up. It's not end of the year.
Yeah, so if you guys ever follow any of my Facebook posts, there's probably one person that will try to object once a month to anything I say. And he is a very close friend of mine. We have had some very, not even spirited debates. I think we've taught each other different things on different levels.
Yeah.
Which I just want you, forewarning Mom and everybody else watching, we're not mad at each other. This is actually how we communicate. It's a lot of banter. It's like the big brother picking on you.
I feel like I
So-
need to switch seats.
Nah, that's where you need to be.
No, I don't. Look, I'm not trying to get caught in the crossfire.
So it's normally a lot of banter, but it's all in good spirit because normally we almost end up saying the same things, but it's just how we're communicating it. So
You wind up seeing the light and agreeing with me.
first shot fired. I'm gonna give you that one. I'm gonna let you. That's a layup. You got that one. So we have brought to the table Mr. Corey Davis from Maven Leadership Collective. Let's give Corey a round of applause, everybody. So Corey, you have exactly 120 seconds to tell the world what you actually do with Maven Leadership before we get into the other stuff.
Well, Maven,
You know how to do these pitches. Let's go.
Maven Leadership Collective is building a movement of queer and trans people of color to radically redefine leadership, the spaces we occupy, and the impact that we have. So currently we have 11 really badass social entrepreneurs making a real difference here in South Florida in a number of issues, including climate change, affordable housing, access to the arts, youth development, homelessness, and our whole goal is to get people to see that the way that we will thrive together, the way that we will have a more prosperous Miami is by having meaningful inclusion and making sure that everybody feels that they can contribute to a more just and vibrant community.
Toya, you can start off because you know when I go, it's over. I'm going.
So you gave a little bit about Maven. What's the impact that you want Maven to have ultimately?
Right. So for us, we want everybody to see that if you are speaking about leadership, if you get around to diversity and inclusion at the end of the conversation, that's not leadership. We like to take an intersectional approach. That means that how is it that we're able to show up as individuals as our whole identity? So for me, it is a queer black man from Jersey, and realizing that when I move, when I show up in that space, that all of that has to come because all of that has value,
Right.
all of that has impact.
And on that same note, what does diversity inclusion look like to you or for you?
Right. So we are very fond of quoting Shirley Chisholm, who says, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.
That's right.
So we really want to bring as many folding chairs as possible. And it's not enough to be around the table, but it's also important to have a meaningful voice, to have a contribution. And at a certain point, if you don't feel that that table, that room is suited for you, go out and build your own table. Have your own impact in the way that you define.
That's right.
So I want to educate. What's the game that y'all play?
Bengay?
Bengay, yes.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things people have sent me in advance, and some of this I already understand just because of the inclusion work that we do at Digital Grass. There's a couple of questions that we want to clear up.
Okay.
There is LGBT, where
Yeah.
we started off. That ended in about, what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
No, people still use that.
Okay. But now there's LGBTQ.
There's far more letters that come after.
How many
So
letters
what
do
are-
y'all
what are
have
they?
now?
Yeah.
What's
I
the
mean-
full thing?
I
Yeah.
mean, for us, it's as many letters as you feel represents your identity in your community.
Okay.
For me, when I speak about the community, I speak about the queer community, because for me, I think that the letters LGBT still have baggage that they carry for a number of people in the community, and I feel that queer is far more inclusive and represents the fluid nature of identity.
How so, for those who are not familiar or
Yeah, I was
not in
about
the
to
community?
say, in other words, what we
Right.
want to know is, what's the difference between a black gay man and a black queer man? What's the difference?
Or female?
Right. So that really, the wonderful thing about language is that, and why, I guess what we're really getting to is why there are so many new words that we're not familiar with.
No, because before you answer, I'm gonna say no because we were watching Billions, and Taylor, one of the new VPs or whatever, working with. First of all, I'm talking about this like they're real companies. This is the TV show, but I'm very embraced into this show.
It's on Showtime,
Yeah,
right?
it's on Showtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at Axe Capital,
No,
but
Showtime.
yeah, Showtime. But Axe Capital,
Yeah.
Taylor said her profile is to be identified as they.
Right.
And they make very good usage of that in the show.
Right.
Where they're like, with Taylor, I don't know how we should work with them and they persistently use that. So
Right.
I understand the difference, but I don't think a lot of people understand why those are important. So I don't think it's less of why is there new acronyms or new, but we just want, people need to understand.
Oh, yeah,
And some
no,
people
absolutely.
are scared to ask.
And to use
Yeah.
it appropriately so you don't offend.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's go back to pronouns.
Okay.
So I don't watch that show, but I do know
Good
that
show.
I know that there's a number of people who prefer to go by they, and first I will say whatever pronoun somebody would like to be addressed as, that those are the pronouns that we should use. And when we're talking about inclusion, a lot of times, like in this space, we have asked that we start to include pronouns on the name tags here, in addition to like your name and how many times you've been here, because we don't want to make assumptions. And here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to connect, and we are trying to build new relationships. And we could easily misgender somebody or use the pronouns that they do not want used, and that undermines the whole purpose of being in a space where you're trying to connect and network, and where you might be trying to attract new talent or new customers. And so the pronoun equation is going to be very important moving forward. People who use they can do it for any number of reasons. My co-founder welcomes all pronouns. You can use they if you do not identify in the gender binary. So most people conceive of gender as being either male or female. Other people realize that there is a spectrum of gender identity and don't feel that they fit neatly into one of those two categories and may adopt a wide range of pronouns that are available to them, they being they, them, theirs being one set.
So the Q stands for question, right?
Q, there are two Qs.
Okay.
One is questioning, and the other one is queer.
Right.
Okay. So an LGBTQ,
Queer.
that's queer? Oh. So what's the
Where
question?
did you hear the questioning from? Where'd that come from?
That's what I heard when I first heard it.
Yeah, some people include the questioning in the wonderful thing about our community is that particularly when it comes to identity, we are trying to say, hey, if you have felt othered in your life, you can find space in our community.
Okay.
So when we see the extension of letters that get added on, and sometimes people push back against that, it's really a way of saying, hey, we are trying to be as inclusive as possible, because we realize that labels and identity are very important, just as important as our names are. And so you want the respect of people recognizing who you are.
Can you be a straight black male and have a pronoun? Or does the pronoun automatically position you to be?
No, yes, of course, because your pronouns would most likely be he, him, his, I would imagine, but you could really, depending on how comfortable you are in your orientation, you could say all pronouns are welcome, because what you would say is that really I'm comfortable enough to just flow with what's going on. So really, it's up to you. I can't identify you. I can't say what pronouns are right for you.
Right.
Just like in the converse, you can't identify yourself as an ally. That's not a title for you to claim.
Why not? Break that down a little bit.
Because
Man, I thought we were allies. I was going to put that in our...
Yeah.
So, yeah, break that down for us. Unpack that.
Simply because that you have gay friends or gay employees, or think that gay rights are cool, queer rights are cool, that's not enough to be an ally. An ally is somebody who actively engages and uses their privilege on behalf of the queer community. So it's not enough to say, oh yeah, I like y'all are cool. It is, even when it's uncomfortable for you, maybe you might have to sacrifice something. Are you actively being an ally or advocating on behalf of the queer community? So for example, when we are speaking about police brutality, for example.
And the people say I got that one black friend?
Right.
Okay.
Or if, let's just say black folks are saying that we have too many hashtags and that there doesn't need to be one more unarmed black man dead in the street at the hands of a police officer. Are we also keeping in mind that Pride Month started as a riot against police brutality? Do we know enough to know that there are trans women of color being killed on a regular basis, not going publicized, not being investigated? And are we speaking up at the same time as a community to say, as well, trans sisters of color who are having a tough time of it, who might be being housed in prison in a male facility? Are we speaking up again about that too? Or are we not speaking up about the queer community when we're speaking about the black community? if Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter.
And that's a very interesting point, because I want to talk about politics really quick too. But going back to the ally, that requires responsibility.
Yeah.
And it requires you, like you said, to be very active. So with Maven, are allies a part of Maven, or is it really just for the community, and allies can sort of work, but they're not necessarily included in the program?
No, we definitely include allies in the mix, both within the group of social entrepreneurs that we have. We have
Okay.
11. We have allies within the program as instructors, as community partners, because we are delivering a message of meaningful inclusion. So we really believe in practicing what we preach, and we feel that really if we are going to have innovative, sustainable solutions to the problems that are facing and the challenges that are facing our community, South Florida, that it's going to be really all hands on deck. And we have to learn how to work together. Right now, we have a very diverse community here in South Florida. I don't know that anybody would say that it's a particularly integrated community. And so what are we missing out on in terms of what we really can achieve as a city, as a new Miami, if we don't realize that we have to harness all available talent? If we are not saying at every meeting, at every activity, at every gathering of funders, are we saying who's not around this table, who is not getting to contribute? If we are not actively doing that, then what we really are doing is maintaining barriers to civic engagement. And I don't know how you have a prosperous, thriving community when everybody cannot participate at the fullness of their talent.
And when a lot of people think about South Florida, they probably think that it's very friendly.
Yeah.
Because of South Beach and Key
Right.
West, being very open to it. But is it really? Like, do you feel that it's inclusive enough to the point where you're able to move and make the change that you want to see? Or is it not as flexible?
For queer and
For
trans
queer,
people of color?
Yeah.
I think it depends on at what level
Okay.
are we talking about. It depends. To me, I would always like to see greater engagement of queer and trans people of color. I think that when you look at the people that we have in our cohort, someone like Adrienne Madriz, who is working with SMASH to deal with affordable housing and working against slumlords and really trying to do some kind of community development. Or you have Trey Jones, who's working over at Pride Lines, making sure that people are getting access to the health resources that they need and the education and information that they do, or case management for people who are living with HIV. We have a number of people who are doing really impactful things in the community, things that really improve the lives of everyone who is living here. All together, directly through their work, our 11 Mavens impact the lives of more than 13,000 people. That's not just like the total number of like their organizations. It's the work that they're actually doing through their programs or through their social ventures.
So taking off the hat, some of us need to know, because there's being in the tech industry,
Yeah.
then there's being black in tech.
Okay.
What's the difference between LGBT and being black and LGBT?
Well, it depends on what space you're in.
Let's say business. Let's go with business, because it's less of we speak less of, well, not that we don't speak of social issues, but if you're looking from an entrepreneurial side and
Right.
business development side, what do you see as the impacts there?
Right. Well, what I would say is what the research suggests. And there is a report that was out last year working at the intersections that was a continuation of a really great report that was put out by a Building Movement Project called Race to Lead. But at working at the intersection says that sexual identity is a compounding factor to race when we look at opportunities for advancement for people, particularly within organizations. So there is a certain level of work that any person of color understands that they do in addition to their job, right? So for most people who have worked in a corporate or nonprofit environment, they, particularly if they are few in number. Like I've had roles where not only have I had to do my job, but then I'm the black person. So now I must speak for all of the black people in the company, particularly if you're in a management position, right? And that becomes additional labor that you have to engage in.
So you become the community.
You become the community, and you have to convey what we all agreed to on the morning conference call as black folks, and then share that with other people. That then becomes work that is not something that is recorded on your annual evaluation, right? You may have been contributing strongly to the culture and the relationships, but that's not your job, but it's something that's expected because people will come to you. That then, based on the research, has an emotional impact, an exhaustion impact, has an impact on our ability to exercise self-care, doesn't show up in pay increases, right? So all of that, plus getting your work done, does have an impact.
Is for inclusion, or even if we were looking at the new inclusion, 3 words, and then after these 3 words, I want you to pick a word. Okay. Acceptance, support, or awareness. Which of those 3 words will most represent what inclusion should look like or would look like?
Acceptance,
support, or awareness.
I don't like any.
Or other. You can pick a.
You can pick another word.
I would say celebrate. I think that if you truly understand meaningful diversity and inclusion, you are saying to yourself, aha, I have a competitive advantage. An organization that is less diverse doesn't have all of this talent, doesn't have this range of options, doesn't have this range of problem solvers who are bringing their own individual identities and experiences and networks to the table. So you should celebrate to say, hey, this is like money. This is the answer to sustainability. This is the answer to me getting out in front of my competition because I have a talent pool that really is ready to go to battle. I mean, that's so to me, all of those are a little bit too tepid. You should be jumping up and down with joy and saying, oh, I have a diverse talent pool.
And diversity makes sense to us because we get it, because if you're making a product or if you're doing a business, you want to make sure that those who are around the table reflect your consumers. But for whatever reason, that's still not an idea or a concept that's being fully embraced. Do you feel that is, how can we sort of still, when we talk about Silicon Valley and a lot of the, Fortune 500, diversity is still something that they struggle with. Is Maven trying to attack that from doing different, with your cohort, different curriculums or different programming to sort of infuse and help to continue the discussion around proper diversity inclusion in corporate?
So for us, we look at it as creating wealth, creating a knowledge base of wealth, creating a network of wealth, creating personal self-care of wealth. And the reason why I put it in that perspective is because I want people to understand it very differently. You can do the right thing and we'll all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and realize from the sake of a moral standpoint, we should be working together across lines of difference. But we know that people are really motivated more likely by self-interest. And if we can see that your prosperity, the prosperity of your organization, your community is tied to everyone doing well, then at some point we can get people to really truly embrace the fact that you can do well by doing good. And so for us, we make sure that we have instruction in our class so that everybody feels that they can operate an organization at a high level. We bring in community partners so that people feel like they can call up who they need to on a real relationship basis, not a transactional basis, which is so much the case here in Miami. But that also we're able to take time out because being an entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, is a taxing lifestyle. It's very rewarding, but it demands a lot of you. It demands a lot of the people who are around you and care for you. So how is it that we take time out and say, you know what, I have to build in a regular sleep schedule. I need to make sure that I'm finding joy in the work that I'm doing, because maybe sometimes helping the people that I'm helping can be particularly heavy and draining. But how am I replenishing and sustaining myself, and how am I modeling that for the rest of the people on my team? So for us, that is the model that we're working from. And we feel that when you are able to use that model on a regular basis, that's what diversity inclusion looks like. That you can show up into any space well prepared and very clear about who you are, so that people have no excuse not to want you as part of their team. And then the other part that we do is we work with organizations, corporations, and government agencies as well to say, what are the elements of culture that you have to have in place within your organizations, so that you can make sure that you have a covenant with the community, so that you remain relevant, and so that you can attract the talent at all levels of the organizations that you will need to survive. At this point, we're looking at a demographic shift across the board that the status quo will no longer work.
I guess so. Maybe when I bring up those words, what I'm thinking from what you said, if I'm looking at acceptance, support, and awareness, it seems like people are aware. They're aware of the LGBT community, and they know the impact that they have.
Okay.
If you're looking at support, that comes from the genuine element of the allies you spoke of.
Right.
Not to be self-proclaimed allies,
Right.
but to actually
do the
sow
work.
that support,
Sure.
to do the work.
Sure.
If you look at acceptance, it's to accept me for my talents and who I am, not for my I would say my personal lifestyle, or lifestyle I choose to live, or whatever pronoun that I choose to go by.
Okay.
So that's why I was asking, if we were looking at the basis of the new inclusion, what are the actual wins and the challenges, or what would be a win that you would be seeking and a challenge that you're going through right now with Maven leadership, as far as the issues that you're actually addressing? What does a win look like for Maven, and what is a challenge that you're still facing?
Okay. So a win for us is, as we have been in operation over the past year, we have started to see more and more leadership programs, leaders in this community, organizations turning to us and having a very different conversation about what leadership looks like. For us, that's a major win. I don't know that there were a whole lot of people viewing queer and trans people of color as key drivers in this discussion. And here we are now. For us, over the long term, it would be that leadership is redefined to include diversity and meaningful inclusion as an essential element, not as an afterthought.
So let me ask you this, because the issues sound the same, but it goes into an extension of people of color.
Right?
But then when I think about it, my field, or not as much so currently, but a previous field, more so marketing and graphic design, those industries, if you go to a CMO meeting in New York, and in that industry that was predominantly dominated by white males that were gay or queer, and white females that were either lesbians. So if I'm looking at that industry, the power there isn't affected by their sexual orientation or how they identify, because they still were at the top and they still dominated. I think the ratio was about 65 to 70% of them were in power as chief executives in that level. So is it as much so, and I'm asking genuinely, but I mean, I also try to speak for other people that might have confusion of this. Is it as much so the aspect of the acronym or whatever is attached to you versus simply just being black?
Well, for us,
Or a person of color?
a person of color, because really we do have Asian representation in our cohort. We have Latinx representation. We have black folks in our cohort. We have white folks in our cohort. So for us, we really do speak about people of color. We were created because in a community that was advocating for equality and respect the LGBTQ community, conversations about race, class, gender really are still not had as sufficiently as they should be. And when we were volunteering and engaging, my co-founder Danny Anzueto and I, in a number of organizations in this region, when you look at the low-level either employees or day of event volunteers, this is a very diverse group of people. As you move up to the board level or executive committee level, that diversity tends to disappear.
Right.
And so you normally have cisgendered, affluent, white, older men who are calling the shots and not particularly interested in having a conversation of equity within the community. That is seen as a distraction. That is seen as something that is disunifying. And to me, it overlooks the strength and opportunities that we have. And as we tried to work within organizations, we realized that there was nobody who was doing this as a singular focus, saying that queer and trans people of color are making valuable contributions every single day. We need to amplify the impact. We need to raise the level of visibility. We need to provide resources so that we can be even more impactful, and that's why we started Maven. So when we are looking across the board, let's take nonprofits, for example. We know that 27% of nonprofit boards in this country are 100% white. We know that 40% of foundation boards are 100% white. We know that the racial makeup of senior leadership in nonprofits has not changed in 15 years and always hovers somewhere just below 20%. For me, the status quo is not working. And as especially social impact ventures take it on more and more of the burden of making sure that the social safety net exists within our community, because the government is pulling back, all businesses are not realizing what opportunity exists within being responsible corporate citizens. It falls to the nonprofit sector to be able to do. How is it that you think then that decisions are made when there's not sufficient diversity at decision-making levels? That's about hiring. That's about looking at who our next generation of leaders are. That's about resourcing. How are we designing our budgets? What are the metrics that we're using in order to determine success in our programs? All of that skews away if there is not a reflective makeup within the organization. So that's why Maven is trying to move the needle in terms of representation within organizations.
I guess, and this is my thing, and it's something that we've talked about before, but something to also have the basis of some understanding. If 5 years from now, I decide I'm gay, okay?
I'm already having a problem with the premise of this question.
I was about to say, decide?
Nobody decides that they're gay. That you are not gonna you're taking me to a place now to start controversy. I understand where we're going.
No.
But no one wakes up and decides that they're gay.
I'm sorry. Hold on. I'll rephrase it.
Yeah.
Let's say 5 years from
You
now, I
discover.
accept or discover.
Accept's better.
Accept or discover that I'm
Accept's
gay.
better.
It's still problematic, but we'll keep moving. Go ahead.
And then I'm out seeking a job.
Right.
Do you think my race or my sexual orientation is hurting me more on the basis of that discrimination?
Well, it depends on what job, what community. The whole thing about marriage equality is that you could get married on Sunday, and then, that's what they say. You can get married on Sunday, and then you can go home and get kicked out of your house and fired on Monday. So there's still a lack of protections in a number of places. So there's this perception that I think that the queer community kind of has it made in the shade. There's a certain segment, but There's
Yeah,
still
that part that you just skipped over,
Mm-hmm.
that's the part of the conversation I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because that's the distinction that I don't think are had in conversations enough for people to understand the impact, because there is a certain sector that does have it in a totally different way, but it's not discussed openly enough where it actually
That
is made
exists
clear.
in Wakanda. So even among black people, when we keep talking about black excellence and black excellence,
Wakanda
that
forever.
there is power and privilege in oppressed communities. There's power and privilege everywhere. So wherever you are, there's somebody who is exerting power and privilege, even in a circumstance where you would say, there's no way I want to be here.
Right.
You know, so that exists. Of course it exists. Yeah, I mean, that exists.
Yeah, and I think too, talking about industries, right? So no, I think that's a valid point, because let's talk about, like, if you were in fashion,
Right.
like, it wouldn't matter, right? Because we know that is an area that's very creative and very open.
Right.
So I think that's
No.
really?
No, did you go see the movie, The Gospel According to Andre Leon Talley?
I haven't seen. I want to see it.
Go. You got to go over to O Cinema, and you have to see it before the run is over. And it really talks about his life as a black queer man.
In fashion.
Where
Right.
they refer to him as Queen Kong. So in the Paris runways, this is somebody.
See, this is what I'm talking
Right,
about.
that's where he was trying to go.
This is the part of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If the topic seems to be still discussed in the basis of eggshells versus discussing the elements that actually push together that make it even worse. The reason why I brought it up, MBJC, Sharon Letman Pacheco, one of my first bosses, she worked with MBJC. And I remember the day I asked her, I was probably in my mid-20s, and I asked her, I was like, why is there a whole different organizations just for the LGBT community of black people?
Right.
And she said, because it's twice as hard. It's even worse. It comes with a whole different stigmatism that is not discussed. She literally would describe it to me, it's racism on steroids.
Right.
And I don't hear that coming across in the clarity to make people understand your point. So what you're saying, because I'm not trying to be funny, it took a long enough time to get there. But what LaToya saying, referring to me, Michael, if Michael was gay in the fashion industry, he would be okay. And then your first response is,
No.
absolutely not.
Right, but that's the thing,
We're
because
not
from the
breaking it down
outside,
to discuss it
it
enough.
looks as if fashions are
You
very
gotta
much
come
more
back into the
liberal.
mic. I know you're getting comfortable.
I have shared with you that the research says that there's exhaustion, that there's additional barriers, that there is.
But that research isn't talking about black transgender women getting killed. There's work, and then there's social. There's jobs, and then there's life. I mean, I just want to peel the Band-Aid off, because we can't educate people the way you can if the rawness isn't more so. Matter of fact, let's go back to the gentleman you're talking about. He was called
Andre.
what again? Andre?
Queen Kong.
Queen Kong. Tell us a little bit about that. Let's just go there for that particular topic, and then I'll have a better point to make.
So, Andre Leon Talley,
Well-known,
well-known
well-respected.
fashion icon.
Yep.
I don't know. Who is he?
Creative editor
Oh, no, who is
at
he?
Vogue for a number
Okay.
of years. Was at Women's Wear Daily. Like, just so responsible for a number of
Trends.
designers and trends and
Yep.
all of the rest. So I really would encourage you to go see this film. He grew up in Jim Crow South in North Carolina in Durham, and went on to Brown, and then left Brown, graduated from Brown, and then went to Europe and took over.
Okay.
And for a number of
Is
years.
he still alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Is he kind of tall, really tall?
Super
Yeah,
tall.
Yeah,
the-
okay.
The,
The little,
salt
like-
and pepper hair.
Yeah.
So he has his
I know.
trademark is wearing these capes and
The
caps.
Right.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking
Right.
With
about.
the ruffle
Okay.
collars
All
and
right.
stuff.
So there was a time where people were hating on him when he was claiming the scene in Paris, and there were people who started calling him Queen Kong, as in reference to King Kong, but gay, and then obviously making a racial slur, and that was particularly hurtful to him. So you can attain many levels of success in industries that are seen as, I guess, gay friendly, but still have discrimination. I don't think that
But
does that come
where they
as a
discriminate,
surprise?
where they discriminate him being gay, or were they just discriminating him being black?
What you are trying to do, and this is why intersectionality is so important, because what you are trying to do is draw a false dichotomy that serves no one. He is not more black than he is gay.
Okay.
When I came out to my father and he said to me, why would you choose to be gay?
Yes.
You are already a black man and your life will be hard enough.
Exactly.
I said to my father, just like I did not choose to be black, I did not choose to be gay. And just like there has never been a day where I would have chosen to be anything other than black, there has never been a day that I would have chosen to be anything other than gay.
So that goes into what I'm saying. Some of the social impact that comes back from the social aspects is, would you say there's a higher level of unacceptance of being gay in the black community?
No, I would not say that.
Okay.
I know that oftentimes people want to say that.
I don't think but this is the thing, Corey. I don't think it's what people want to say. It's what people don't know and they're asking.
Right. No.
And I think some people,
let's
people assume,
people
assume out of fear of not asking because some people are uncomfortable to answer the questions.
Well, let me say this. I'm not uncomfortable. What I will say.
No, I'm not saying you.
No,
I
understand.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is oftentimes we hear that the black community is more homophobic or is the most homophobic. I think that is anti-blackness. I'm not willing to say that the black community is more homophobic than any other community. Do I believe that there are certain stereotypes that black men in particular feel comfortable falling into that are deeply problematic and unfortunate? Yes.
Right.
The idea that somehow our sexuality is so tied up, our sex is so tied up with our sexual identity, I think is a problem that has roots in racism. And people's homophobia has roots in racism. If you feel that you are less of a man, less of a black man, or someone is less of a black man because they are gay or trans or bisexual, that has its roots in this black buck notion that was used to kill us and lynch us and to keep us back today and to keep us out of certain educational institutions. I went to the University of Maryland at College Park. For a number of years, they built up University of Maryland at Eastern Shore because the chancellor at the time said, we cannot have black men on campus. We have to protect the sanctity of our white women. So now,
what?
This is fine. So now when you say, and I love the university, don't get me wrong, but that's the history and we have to be honest about talking about it. But when black men feel scared about, well, if I have a gay friend then people will think I'm gay or whatever, you have to realize that some of that is rooted in the racism that was used to kill your grandfather. And when you flip it and start, you can't just pick the positive parts of racism that you like.
My great-grandfather, I'm not that old, just saying. Go ahead.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
you can't cherry pick
the
parts of the racism that serves us, that you like, because it all has its root in the same place.
And I agree to it, but I think it's more so empowering to educate people how even those things tie back to racism. Yeah. I think people are a lot more unaware.
Yeah.
Some people are a lot more conscious, and we have a lot more understanding. That's why we made sure when we did the status of who we want to help with digital grass, it was minority, women, LGBTQ.
Right.
Like, we understand it, but a lot of people don't understand. So sometimes, and we've discussed this before, it's more so something you discuss in a associate producer meeting where I purposely have to ask questions to pull you in a direction to explain it, because sometimes we assume what people know and what they understand.
Right.
And we don't have the conversations. So there's things that people are doing to make someone uncomfortable. There's things that people are saying and assuming that put them in a position of ignorance, that if they just simply took the time to ask the question or even know how to pose the question, we could get past so much of that.
I think that we make it too complicated. We overthink it. The notion of being queer, black, Latinx, and bisexual, lesbian and white, Asian and trans, like all of those things still come down to the fact that we want respect. And everyone can understand that people want to be respected. Just as the respect that you claim for yourself, you can afford to others. Whether you know all of the particulars about what pronoun to use or all of these things, you know that you want respect at work. You want to be valued for the job that you do. You want to be, valued for what you do in your community. You want to be able to go into your place of faith and be able to pray to your God. Like, everybody understands that. When we try to compartmentalize and separate out, it still comes back to be respectful and you'll get respected.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we won't have a box to tick?
Why would we want that?
Just for your point, respect. Why couldn't it just be being a human being? You be whatever that is. Why do we have to?
I don't think that's
Self-identify.
progress. If someone came along and said, is there ever a point where we won't claim our blackness? I don't want to give up my blackness.
Right.
And so I don't want to give up my queerness. I will check that box every
Right. So as many
single time.
boxes as you can check, you're going to just
Yes.
check them.
To me, I feel like,
Right.
yes, absolutely.
Because, that's one of the topics that's being discussed because the census is coming up and they're talking about how they're changing all of the different,
Part of the problem that is happening, and I do want to say this, so much of how we're building this ecosystem, this startup ecosystem, the tech ecosystem, entrepreneurship, we're being left out because we're not being part of the data. People are either taking government data that doesn't collect queerness or count queerness, or they're afraid to ask. And so when that happens, it impairs your ability to make quality decisions. If you don't have good data, garbage in, garbage out, and particularly in this region, where if you do not have queer folks as part of the conversation, as part of the story, you only have a fraction of the story. And we're seeing that in so many of the reports that are being put out, that you don't have the queer community as part of the community, which in this region just seems absolutely ridiculous.
I get, and I guess to kind of piggyback and more so of a final comment I get where LaToya is coming from, because we've had conversations about the fact of being black versus being Haitian versus being Jamaican, and to some people, those extra boxes matter, but to other people, you're still black.
Right.
Like, if you get arrested today, is the conversation more so about which island, where you from, and what's your sexual orientation versus it was a black man that got killed. So I understand where you were going with that, because
I just want to see his point of view.
Yeah,
people have different point of views.
The extra boxes help, but sometimes the extra boxes create more internal divisions.
I will tell you where the boxes matter. You have the United Way issuing a report that deals directly with economic independence and this Alice population. This population that lives between the poverty line and the actual cost of living here in all over the country, but here in South Florida, we're going to talk about. If you are talking about economically vulnerable communities, and this report does not capture queer and trans people of color, have an average income for a trans woman of color at $10,000 a year or something like that, like, where is it that you really have a meaningful conversation about vulnerable populations, and you can't even speak to
because you don't have
some
the
of
data.
the most, because you don't have the data.
That makes sense.
Then that United Way turns to foundations, to state legislature, and says, hey, let's formulate policy, giving guidelines based on this data. We're left out of that story. Now you compare that to the lack of diversity that's already in those organizations.
So I want to show you something real quick. Everybody in the crowd that just heard that, how many of you would see the importance of that kind of data going that far to what he just said? Raise your hand. So you see not that you understand it. Before what he just said, did you think collecting that data made that kind of impact? You have. Where have you started identifying that self within your own self to make that kind of impact? This is my thing.
Right. Yeah.
There's things that people will say they understand,
Sure.
but there's things that people don't. And I'm sorry, for those that are watching, first question, 80% raised their hand of the thousands of people in the crowd.
Thousands.
Second question, nobody raised their hand. And I think that's where it comes into education. That's why having someone like you on the show is so important.
Well, I
because
appreciate
the
being
little
here.
things we inform of people, they may understand how the impact makes when you have explained it.
Yeah.
But I think now more people might be cognitive to add that extra box when they're doing a different survey or when they're collecting different data. But I'm not trying to be funny, guys. Y'all may understand it because he said it, but y'all weren't thinking that way because none of y'all would have anybody went and put in the legislation that this should be on the census form. Have any of you guys thought to write a letter about that? There's a difference between the things we say.
Right.
And maybe that's not even today's
But
ignorance,
that-
but that could be my rant. It's just one of these things.
Well, but that's why I was saying there's a difference in being an ally.
Yes.
There's a difference between being a friend and
I
an ally.
get it now. I get it.
So if you heard these kinds of things before, or even just in your normal work, in your normal practice, you don't speak up for queer folk, and you think, hey, I'm progressive, I'm good, but did you really advocate? Did
No,
you
and
really,
I'm thinking
so
I'm thinking
that's-
90% of the people that think I would say 98% of the people that think they do don't know because we might not be getting fed the data the right way of how it's making impact because people take the impact on a more superficial way.
Yeah.
They think
Right.
it's more so just because you want to wear a purple shirt and you getting
Right.
offended, not no, you got a whole economic impact. It's just it's the way they're looking
how
at
the
it.
funds
I
are
will say
distributed.
that there is an obligation for us to go out and educate ourselves. We're all walking around with computers in our hand. You can Google it.
I think it's a part obligation, but I think it's an obligation for people to listen because otherwise, that would be like it's an obligation for black people to let other people know the struggle we're going through. The struggle is apparent. I think it's an obligation for more people to listen and actually
That's
ask
what
questions.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
We're on the same
they
page.
need
I
to
think
ask questions.
I feel that we need to ask questions. If you are filling out a form at work, you're filling out your employee engagement survey, and they're asking you how happy you are, and they say check male or female. At this point, you know that there are people who do not feel comfortable checking either box. Why should they have to say necessarily, I don't feel comfortable here at work checking this box? Wouldn't it be great if somebody who felt comfortable checking the mailbox said, you know what, I'm fine checking this, but I know that there's colleagues who might feel intimidated about raising this at work. Could you make a more inclusive selection here for us and said that to human resources? That's being an ally.
And then let's analyze this data and see how those people are
Sure.
affected. Let's see who's really happy at
Let's
work.
know who's in our workplace. Let's know who's our colleague.
So it's almost a missing level of identification that's ignoring different impacts in a
Segments,
way.
yeah.
Yes, but then because then what we're saying is, do we have the support mechanisms in place to make sure that our environments are welcoming and affirming?
And I think that would go back to acceptance, support, and awareness.
I know you like those words, but I'm gonna work on you with those because they are this far away from like when we were all excited about like toleration.
Oh,
and,
no.
It's taking you back. You like,
taking me back.
we trying to
I'm
go
having
forward, trying to
flashbacks.
move
We're
forward.
moving
Nah, it got to be more.
Question
than
on policy though, because we talked about it a little bit, but marriage equality, because you brought it up. What's sort of the next thing that is important for the community to know that the LGBTQ community is facing or trying to solve for? I mean, this administration is doing a whole lot of stuff. So is there anything in particular that we need to be aware of for those who are trying to be allies and to support? What's sort of on the agenda from a policy standpoint?
Well, you know, my role is not to speak about policy or advocacy. That's not what we do. I do know that our job is to support people who are in
Who
that
in
area.
it? Okay.
There's not agreement about what the gay agenda is at this moment.
Just like there's no agreement on the black agenda.
Right. So we're in the
Yeah.
same. We're pretty much in the same spot. I would say that for me,
Yeah.
our priority is making sure that people know how to get involved in their communities and how to get the resources to be able to do that. That, for me, is a priority. Whatever is burning in your soul to make your particular impact, on the community, how is it that you can get out there and do that, whether that's voter education or whether that is making sure that people get food or are prepared for hurricane season. All of that is very important. Violence in the community, but for us, we leave that to the more political folks.
All right.
Cool.
Well, Corey,
Yes.
told you it wouldn't be that bad.
Okay.
We actually try to educate people, and we also try to learn while we're on the show. I have a final statement, but yeah, I know. Do you have a closing statement you want to make before I close out?
Closing for this or for just overall?
Overall, because we're actually at the end of the show.
Right. That's what I was gonna say, we
actually
ran
a good
long.
flow. We didn't even have a. We didn't even get
We
to
didn't
do
do
our
our
two
mini
segments.
segments.
We didn't do our mini segments.
Or
We
it's
just
quick
talked
six.
over.
So yeah, no, I would definitely like to say thank you so much, Corey, for being here.
Thank you for having
Very
me.
enlightening conversation. And thank you all for watching. It's been a great, how many episodes we've had? 13?
It's been over 15.
15.
Yeah.
15 episodes. I hope you all enjoyed it. We've had lots of great conversations and expect more because when we come back, late summer, early fall, it's going to be fire.
Yeah. She's very humble. I just want you guys to know Cosmology is doing crowdfunding.
That's right.
The money you was going to waste on drinks, go to the
Give
store,
it us.
buy your bottle, and give them the money that you would have spent on tips and everything else. So
Yes.
Cosmology is now out there, so make sure you support Toya, the Stirrup sisters, the triplets. They all look the same. Support them. But one of the biggest things we wanted to address is we've had, not against Matt. Matt, we got to get Matt on the show, but we've had people ask us why we don't have certain people on the show. We've had people ask us about the format and everything else. Just want to explain something to you guys. Budget-wise, we were probably structured to do 6 of these. No, we don't get paid up here. Dante's not getting paid. David's not getting paid. Once we did 6, the budget had ran out. We're on 15, and we still plan on doing the rest of the year. We decided to do this because we felt there was a missing voice in the community. We don't have advertisers. We don't have sponsors beyond the Knight Foundation. Our advertisers are us. These are the businesses that we're getting ready to start, that we're getting ready
Yes.
to lift up. But this isn't actually about the money. That's not the situation. Guys, info at digigrass.com. Tell us who are the highlights in our communities that we should speak to. Let us know who we should have on the show. We're not CNN. We don't have a whole bunch of EPs, executive producers, and associate producers telling us what's the breaking news. We don't get phone calls like, hey, you got to get Corey on the show. I see Corey say something smart, be like, you need to come on the show. That's how we get people on the show. It works that way. But if you know somebody, our thing is to bring exposure to the things that most of the community don't know about. We know a lot of people. We don't know everybody. We see a lot of people. We have limited resources. Just Maven is doing what it can with its resources. Digital Grass is doing what it can with its resources. Please, people, let us know who we should be highlighting. The parameters are pretty much, at this point, it used to be a lot more stricter. We was really going to go tech, but tech has kind of slowed down, and we realized social impact matters more, and technology is just a part that comes with it.
Yep.
So we wanted to talk more about what's going on in our community. If it was anything, this show would probably be Wake Up Miami or something a little bit more
Right.
drastic.
A little broader.
But Tech Beats and Bytes, the logo is so dope and the t-shirts
We
are
running
coming,
with it.
so we're going to run with it. But Bytes is for community and the aspect of reaching out. So just reach out to us, but we've learned so much. Tech Beats and Bytes has truly spawned a whole nother company with Junction because we saw missing pieces of the community and we saw gaps that we wanted to fill. So we were like, we'll create a food hall, we'll create a gathering spot where everybody will feel comfortable. Now, everybody might not feel comfortable because when you come in there, it's going to be 90s R&B, it's going to be soul music, but it's going to be a place where people don't feel they're being pushed out or they can't be who they are. It's going to be collard greens. It's going to be able to accept a Southern culture that is sometimes overlooked because sometimes when people think of Miami, they just think Latinx. But there's a reason why schools in South Florida are named Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington coming from Tuskegee University and venturing down into the places of swampland to educate ex-slaves. There's history beyond belief in South Florida that never gets covered. And I can promise you in the next 20 years, not only will we unleash that, we will have at least 5 locations that will celebrate that. And one of them will be across the street at Junction 2027. There's 2 things I talked about last week, which was blind trust. There's people I do trust with my life and they're on my team, but there's people I don't share too much with because people would truly try to bring you down. And one thing you normally don't do is share your dreams and your vision with a person that can't dream as big as you, because the only thing they know how to tell you is, I wouldn't do it, I'm not sure if you can accomplish it. At this point, I'm sharing my dream with you because you can't stop it because the paperwork is in writing. So you either show up or you don't, but everybody's going to tell you about it. So we are going to be the change that we want to see, just like you are, Corey. And we brought leaders on this show. And if you actually take the time to go back and watch these 15 episodes, everything is strategic, whether you see it or not. The storyline will come to light, whether you see it or not. Digital grass is not going anywhere. Whether we do this in a lobby, whether we do this at Wynwood Yard, whether we do this on the streets, we realize we will produce this show because of the impact it's making, not to the masses, but to the 2 people that come and say, I decided to stay because of you. I didn't give up on my business because of you. It's about touching one, not about touching many. And as long as we touch one, we've done our job. So from Digital Grass, from our biggest and most supportive group, the Knight Foundation, from Junction 2027, and from our great interns, Sandari, Shahid, that are departing us and moving on to the next journey of their life and take the Digital Grass dream up to North Carolina, who recently got engaged. Congratulations, guys.
Oh,
we want to say
summer loving
to and all this love. Just want y'all to know that love started from a jacked up, horrible karaoke. And when the worst karaoke
we need a rewind.
ever.
Rewind.
We got, if you could just see Sandari just sitting there clapping like a little seal. She was so happy that day. But we've created relationships, businesses, and everything else through this platform, and we won't stop. But LaToya, thank you for your support. Dante, David, Alicia, Rosie. We got a baby coming into the family from Quadira, the Stirrup Sisters. Still got to get you on the show. Number one supporter. I don't want to even call him out. I don't want to put him on blast. Abner won't come. All the time. Abner has made 95% of our shows, and that means I think he's only missed 2, and that means a lot. And it's also our supporters. So this is just the summer wrap up. Send us your ideas. Let us know what you want to cover. We can only stretch ourselves so far, but I promise you we'll stretch our wings as far as we can. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for supporting. We'll see y'all next time.